You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. LSU was back on the practice field on Tuesday, and Brian Kelly met with reporters after practice. The great news for LSU, Sage Ryan and all the running backs are healthy. They were back at practice, so LSU's got about as close to a full deck as you could have here inside of 2 weeks away from the opener against Florida State. The only injury, a real injury, is J.K. Johnson with the broken leg, who's going to miss the Florida State game and presumably much, much more than that. But other than that, LSU appears really healthy, which is fantastic news with, a few more practices to go before you get into game week. So knock on for Micah, keep everybody healthy. That's a great thing. Brian Kelly did also, when he met with reporters, he was asked sort of what he got out of that scrimmage. And remember, it was the final day of fall camp, the final full-scale scrimmage. It's the last chance really to see a live go in a real game-like setting before you play Florida State. Here was Brian Kelly's answer on what he got out of that scrimmage on Saturday.
Overall, what we were looking for more than anything else was, who are the guys that need to be developed to be guys to count on? And who are the guys that are not ready to be counted on yet that need more time to develop? This was much more about finding out defensively, who else can we get on the field at the jack position? Is Whit Weeks getting closer to playing? Can Stamps hold up at corner? And all those became positive for us. And so I think we were looking for those kinds of answers. And then on the other side, who needs more work? Who needs to continue to develop? And I think that's kind of, how we looked at the scrimmage.
I thought the three things he mentioned there, pretty fascinating. Jack linebacker. Not something we've talked a ton about because your starter there is Ovie Ogofu. That's a given, no consideration otherwise. And we've really seen Braden Swinson play pretty well, in the access we've had behind Ovie Ogofu. Now, what's after that? That's a big question. Maybe that's what he's alluding to there. The fact that he said Whit Weeks by name, listen, when we talked about the 5 impact freshmen, one of the names I gave you, right? We saw 2 named by On 3's preseason freshman All-America, Lance Hurd and Kamorian Pimpton. And I've told you, I get why everyone's infatuated with Kamorian Pimpton, but the coaching staff loves Mac Markway. He is more the prototype of the hand-in-the-dirt, inline tight end, the prototypical tight end, whereas Mason Taylor is your pass catcher. Kamorian Pimpton ain't passing up Mason Taylor, and he's a different style player than Mac Markway. You're paying attention to the wrong tight end. But one of the guys that I mentioned was Whit Weeks, because talk to anybody around LSU, they love Whit Weeks. He's going to be a special player here, and he's on every special teams unit already. And when the twos ran out there, it was West Weeks and Whit Weeks at linebacker, which is cool to see the brothers side by side, but they love Whit Weeks. So, hey, does 40 belong? Can he be part of a rotation? Interesting to hear Brian Kelly say that. And then, obviously, the Ashton Stamps question. He has rapidly accelerated through this fall camp, in part because of Denver Harris playing third team and missing part of camp, and J.K. Johnson's injury. So you've got your 2 starters, which we appear right now to be your 2 starters, with Zy Alexander, Deuce Chestnut. Well, they're running Sage Ryan at cornerback, clearly looking for depth and options there, because next up is LaTerrence Welch and Ashton Stamps. So who do you trust? Every time we see them go dime or nickel, meaning 5 or 6 defensive backs, they ain't adding cornerbacks on the field. They're adding safeties on the field because they just feel like they got more bodies there. With Greg Brooks and Sage Ryan and Andre Sam, they feel like that's a better option than adding cornerbacks because they don't feel like they have many of them. So interesting that those are the positions that BK mentioned. Now, something else he talked about, which was one of the other big takeaways from the scrimmage, was seeing Lance Hurd run out there with the first team. Here was Brian Kelly talking about Hurd's development so far in fall camp.
Well, he certainly has developed the understanding of the offense in itself, from terminology to technique to, it's college football. He's going to, there are guys he went against last year that, quite frankly, there was mismatches, maybe 80% of the time, 90% of the time, maybe 99% of the time. So now he's going up against Savion Jones, and he's going up against some pretty impressive football players. So that's a whole new thing for him to deal with. So the rigors of that, right? Each and every day.
Obviously, the physicality is different from high school to college. Lance Hurd ain't struggling with the physicality. Like, he's a big old strong dude. That ain't a problem. The question really is, at this point, is Lance Hurd competing or pushing for a starting job? Here's what Brian Kelly said.
He's a guy that, we're giving, reps to. He's we got to find the best 5 guys, and then the next is the 6th and 7th. So he's in the mix, and he's out there competing hard.
I love it. I love what he said. We got to find, because that answers the question that whenever Lance Hurd was running out there, we talked about it, and the question was, are they really thinking about repping Lance Hurd as a starter and moving Emory Jones inside with the ones, or is this just what it's going to look like when you have your best 5 out there? If someone has to come off the field, are you putting in the backup left guard, the backup right guard, or are you putting in your 6th best offensive lineman and shuffling accordingly? That's Brian Kelly telling you that. We got to get our 5 best out there. So it's not, and I keep using this example because it's just the most glaring one. If something were to happen to Will Campbell at left tackle, God forbid, because I think he's indispensable, because you don't have, like, your backup there is Bo Bordelon. Do you put Bo Bordelon in at left tackle, or do you move Emory Jones to left and Lance Hurd plays right? Or something along, I don't know, something along those lines. That's probably a more likely scenario. So that was interesting to hear Brian Kelly say it like that as well when talking about Lance Hurd. One more, because I know a lot of people have asked also, and I get asked all the time, so you've thought it at some point throughout this camp. Has Jayden Daniels opened up the offense? Are they taking more shots downfield? Are they being more explosive? Brian Kelly kind of tap danced around that one on Tuesday.
It could be, making sure that you get the ball into the hands of your dynamic playmakers, and tactically, setting it up as such that they touch the ball enough that you can get explosive plays out of them. And sometimes, I remember, looking at, Alabama's offense in 2020, and their receivers weren't necessarily always pushing the ball down the field. It was just flipping the ball out on the perimeter, and they were turning them into explosive plays. So, explosive plays to me certainly are about pushing the ball down the field, but it's also about getting the ball into your playmaker's hand.
Hello, Aaron Anderson. And he's right. I mean, look, it's one of the things that Mike Denbrock has said when he met with reporters. It was about getting our guys the ball facing forward instead of coming back to the ball. A lot of that's just the skill set you had. Look at the screen they threw to Caleb Jackson that went for 75 yards. Case in point. Get the ball to a guy moving to an athletic guy moving toward the goal line instead of back toward the ball. They got a lot of dynamic dudes that can do it. So explosive plays don't just come from airing it out downfield. It's getting it to explosive guys that can get you chunk plays. Now, LSU's got plenty of them. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.